Did you know that the single most excruciating moment for a narcissist isn't when they are left behind, but when they are forced to confront the unbearable truth? They themselves destroyed the only real love they have ever known. Imagine a person who has spent a lifetime orchestrating control, weaving charm and manipulation to create the illusion of perfection, suddenly staring into a mirror that reflects not adoration, but emptiness. Carl Jung called the hidden shadow within us the part we refuse to acknowledge, yet it governs us most profoundly. For the narcissist, that shadow is not just fear or insecurity. It is an abyss of isolation, a void where authentic connection cannot survive. In this video, we will journey into the heart of that shadow, revealing the precise moment when the mask falters, when their strategies collapse, and when they realize the love they thought they controlled was never theirs to command. This is not about losing an emotional supply. It's the death of genuine love, the one treasure they can never reclaim. Stay with me until the end, because you will discover not only the truth about how narcissists destroy love, but also how you, as an empath, can rise, reclaim your power, and step into freedom. The illusion of control is perhaps the most beguiling and dangerous landscape in the inner world of a narcissist. From the outside, they appear charming, magnetic, and entirely in command of their environment. But beneath the surface lies a tangled web of fear, insecurity, and unconscious dependency on validation from others. Carl Jung once noted, "Whatever is not made conscious will return as fate." And this observation could not be more relevant when analyzing the narcissist's psyche. The control they believe they wield is never true power. It is a fragile construct designed to mask the yawning emptiness within. Every compliment, every carefully measured gesture of attentiveness, every sudden withdrawal is not simply strategy. It is a reflection of a mind attempting to negotiate with its own vulnerabilities. They are, in essence, trapped in a constant feedback loop. The more they try to assert dominance, the more apparent their lack of authentic control becomes. On the surface, they can read emotions with uncanny precision, crafting interactions that make others feel uniquely understood. But what they perceive as mastery is, in fact, a desperate attempt to manipulate reality to avoid confronting the abyss of their own shadow. The narcissist's shadow is the part they cannot face, the emptiness, the fear of exposure, the inability to engage in genuine emotional reciprocity. Every relationship, every interaction is carefully curated to reinforce their constructed ego, to obscure the hollow space at the core of their being. Yet paradoxically, this very striving reveals the truth. The harder they attempt to dominate, the more they expose the lack of control they desperately deny. Real love, with its demands for authenticity, patience, and vulnerability, is a direct threat to this fragile construct. Unlike the calculated games and manufactured warmth, authentic love pierces through the illusions, illuminating the gaps, fractures, and insecurities the narcissist has worked so tirelessly to conceal. When genuine love enters their sphere, it does not bow to their strategies. It forces exposure, confrontation, and, eventually, awakening. This is the beginning of the breaking point, the first crack in the facade of control that has long defined their interactions. The narcissist's reality is a delicate balance between maintaining the persona and suppressing the shadow, and any intrusion of real love disrupts this precarious equilibrium. Their techniques, the mirroring, the subtle manipulations, the strategic withdrawals, are not tools of mastery over others, but signals of a psyche struggling to maintain coherence amidst inner chaos. The more sophisticated the mask, the more profound the shadow it conceals. In Jungian terms, the narcissist is not merely a perpetrator of manipulation. They are a victim of an unconscious tyranny within themselves, a prisoner to a reflection they cannot tolerate. Recognizing the illusion of control is essential to understanding the narcissist's eventual collapse, because it lays the groundwork for how real love, when it cannot be bent or contained, becomes the mirror that exposes their emptiness. The paradox of the narcissist is that the very relationships they attempt to dominate are the ones capable of shattering the illusions that sustain them, and yet they remain largely unaware of this inevitable confrontation until it strikes with full force. From the very moment a narcissist steps into a relationship, they are guided not by the desire to connect, but by the instinct to reflect, mirror, and manipulate. They possess a unique ability to study your longings, fears, and subtle gestures until they seem to know your soul better than you do. At first glance, this can feel like destiny. Someone who speaks your unspoken words, shares your secret dreams, and makes you believe you have found the rarest connection imaginable. But Carl Jung reminds us that what is projected outward is often what has not been faced within. The narcissist's outward empathy is a strategic projection, a carefully constructed reflection designed to infiltrate the core of your emotions. The initial intensity, the lavish attention, the grand promises, the seemingly infinite affection, is what psychologists term love bombing. It overwhelms, exalts, and seduces, creating a dependency that is mistaken for intimacy. Every compliment, every show of interest, is meticulously calibrated to anchor you to them, to make their presence feel indispensable. Yet within this brilliance lies the shadow, the underlying emptiness and insecurity that remain untouched, concealed behind charm and performance. Real love, however, does not require performance. It does not need spectacle. Its presence is steady, enduring, and unobtrusive, but it carries a light that the narcissist cannot ignore. When authentic love confronts the narcissist's shadow, it becomes a mirror they cannot evade. It exposes not only the absence of sincerity, but also the strategies they have relied on to feel powerful and essential. The mirroring that once charmed now highlights their inability to truly connect. The affection that seemed limitless now underlines the control they cannot sustain. This confrontation is subtle, yet devastating. They cannot love in return without surrendering the persona they have painstakingly crafted. To open their heart would require removing the mask, relinquishing dominance, and embracing vulnerability. A step into the very shadow they fear most. What begins as attraction and allure slowly reveals the limitations of their emotional architecture. The narcissist's strategies, so effective in creating the illusion of intimacy, start to unravel as real love demands presence and reciprocity. And in that unraveling, the first seeds of the breaking point are sown. The more they attempt to maintain control, the more exposed their emptiness becomes, and the closer they inch toward a confrontation with the truth they have long evaded. Love, in its authentic form, does not fight or manipulate. It simply exists, shining a light on what has been hidden, forcing the narcissist to reckon with the reality of their own limitations. In this process, the victim unwittingly becomes the catalyst for the narcissist's awakening, illuminating a shadow that, until now, had remained unseen and unacknowledged. Once the initial charm and intensity of a narcissistic relationship begin to fade, the subtle mechanisms of manipulation emerge with devastating precision. The narcissist starts to erode the self-worth of their partner through incremental and often imperceptible actions. Praise becomes conditional. Compliments are laced with backhanded critiques such as, "You did well," but you know it could have been better. Affection may be suddenly withheld, leaving the partner anxious, confused, and desperately seeking reassurance. This process, Jung referred to as ego erosion, systematically undermines the victim's sense of self, making them increasingly dependent on the narcissist for validation and guidance. Gaslighting, denying, distorting, or rewriting reality is among their most insidious tools. The victim begins to doubt their perceptions, memories, and even their emotional responses, creating a psychological environment in which the narcissist can exercise control effortlessly. Yet, every act of manipulation is a reflection of the narcissist's own unresolved shadow, the emptiness, insecurity, and fear that lurk beneath their carefully constructed mask. Their strategies are designed not only to dominate, but to avoid confronting the reality of their inner void. Each withdrawal of attention, each subtle criticism, each calculated emotional twist serves as a mirror of the narcissist's fear of inadequacy, a fear they project onto others to mask their vulnerability. From the perspective of the victim, the relationship feels like a psychological maze, where every misstep reinforces the narcissist's power and diminishes their own autonomy. Yet, paradoxically, these same manipulations plant the seeds of awakening. As the victim begins to recognize the patterns of control, their own sense of self begins to reassert itself. Awareness emerges, creating a rupture in the narcissist's illusion of dominance. The very behaviors intended to entrench control instead highlight the fragility of the narcissist's persona. The erosion of the victim's ego inadvertently illuminates the narcissist's own insecurities, exposing the emptiness behind the facade of superiority. This is a critical stage in the journey toward the narcissist's breaking point. The more they attempt to maintain authority through manipulation, the more they reveal the absence of authentic connection within themselves. Real love, patience, and emotional consistency from the partner serve as catalysts that amplify this exposure, further destabilizing the narcissist's constructed reality. Ultimately, ego erosion is not simply a tool of control. It is the reflection of a soul incapable of sustaining genuine intimacy. When the victim begins to recognize and reclaim their own worth, the narcissist is forced to confront the collapse of the power dynamic that once defined the relationship, setting the stage for the profound psychological confrontation that is to come. In the narcissist's world, love is never truly about companionship. It is about possession, control, and the affirmation of the ego. Where two healthy individuals can grow together, supporting and reflecting each other, the narcissist views their partner as an extension of themselves, a tool to bolster their sense of importance. Carl Jung observed, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." For the narcissist, love is synonymous with dominance. Their attachment is measured by obedience, compliance, and the ability of the other person to submit to their whims without question. Every moment of joy or self-expression outside the narcissist's sphere is perceived as a threat, an act of betrayal that diminishes their perceived centrality. Real love, however, thrives on freedom, equality, and mutual respect, qualities that the narcissist cannot tolerate because they demand authenticity, vulnerability, and relinquishing control. When authentic love enters, it becomes a mirror exposing not only the superficiality of the narcissist's affections, but also the limitations of their emotional capacity. They cannot endure the demands of real intimacy, the quiet consistency of care, or the patience required to nurture a partnership based on equality. Consequently, they sabotage, devalue, and manipulate to reassert the illusion of control. Every attempt to dominate and possess is ultimately counterproductive. The tighter they grip, the faster love slips away. This is the paradox of narcissistic relationships. The desire to possess and control the very thing that requires freedom and sincerity for its survival leads inevitably to its destruction. When the partner begins to recognize this dynamic and chooses independence, the narcissist experiences a profound awakening, a painful confrontation with the reality that their strategies are insufficient to sustain what they cannot truly understand or emulate. The loss is not merely of a person, but of the singular opportunity to experience authentic love, the one force that could have offered genuine connection and emotional transformation. The narcissist's world, built meticulously around manipulation and ego reinforcement, cannot survive this intrusion. Their illusion crumbles, and for the first time, they are faced with the irreversible truth. Real love cannot be commanded, coerced, or owned. This recognition is both devastating and illuminating, marking a critical threshold in the journey toward their psychological breaking point. The more they attempt to regain control, the more evident their inability to genuinely connect becomes, highlighting the emptiness behind their carefully crafted persona. Silence, in the hands of a narcissist, is not merely an absence of words. It is a meticulously wielded instrument of psychological control. While in healthy relationships, silence can serve as a moment of reflection, connection, or mutual understanding. For the narcissist, it becomes a weapon designed to elicit anxiety, self-doubt, and dependency. They know that unpredictability, the oscillation between warmth and coldness, affection and withdrawal, creates a profound emotional imbalance in their partner. Carl Jung once noted, "Where there is no consciousness, fate will decide for us." In this context, the victim, unsure of the narcissist's intentions, begins to internalize blame, questioning their own worth and actions, and unconsciously submitting to the control dynamics. Every unexpected compliment becomes a reward. Every sudden withdrawal, a punishment. Through this rhythm, the narcissist manipulates perception, making themselves appear indispensable while simultaneously undermining the other person's confidence. Yet the brilliance of this strategy is also its fatal flaw. Emotional control, no matter how skillfully applied, is not true intimacy. It silences compliance, but cannot cultivate love. Jung emphasized that transformation arises only through crisis, and it is precisely within these manufactured crises that the victim begins to awaken. The realization dawns that love cannot survive in the shadow of constant doubt, manipulation, and silent control. Each attempt by the narcissist to command emotional responses becomes a mirror reflecting their own incapacity for authentic connection. As the victim disengages from the cycle, choosing to stop reacting, stop guessing, and stop allowing silence to dictate their worth, the narcissist's carefully orchestrated control begins to collapse. Indifference, rather than anger, becomes the most potent counterforce, depriving the narcissist of the emotional reinforcement they relied upon. In this vacuum, the narcissist encounters their deepest fear, the withdrawal of projection, the moment when the other person's attention and emotional energy no longer serve as a mirror to validate their ego. The silence that once created anxiety now illuminates their emptiness, exposing the fragility of the persona they fought to maintain. The breaking point approaches not with confrontation, but with the quiet realization that the power once assumed has dissipated. The narcissist, unable to comprehend a reality where emotional influence no longer exists, experiences a silent unraveling. a psychological collapse precipitated by the very autonomy they tried to suppress in their partner. This stage is critical because it underscores the paradox of narcissistic relationships. Their power is sustained only through the continued engagement of others, and once that engagement ceases, the facade crumbles. The final stage of the narcissist's unraveling is triggered when the person they once manipulated walks away and thrives independently. Nothing exposes the fragility of their constructed world more than witnessing someone they attempted to control, living fully, happily, and without dependence on them. In the narcissist's perception, power exists only as long as others remain enmeshed in their orbit, seeking validation, attention, or love. When this dependency is removed, their ego confronts a stark and terrifying truth. They are replaceable, ordinary, and incapable of sustaining genuine connection. Carl Jung emphasized, "There is nothing more terrifying than facing oneself." And in this moment, the narcissist is forced to confront their deepest fears: emptiness, exposure, and the absence of authentic love. They may attempt to reclaim control through rage, manipulation, or renewed charm. But the silence and self-possession of the other person render these tactics futile. Every gesture, every promise, every attempt to rewrite the narrative fails to penetrate the newfound autonomy. The narcissist's power collapses not through confrontation, but through the quiet demonstration of independence and self-worth. Their greatest fear is not revenge or retribution, but the erasure from someone's life without emotional response, the ultimate indictment of their illusion of control. This is the psychological breaking point, the moment when they realize that love cannot be possessed or commanded, and the one genuine connection they could have experienced has been lost forever. For the survivor, this stage marks liberation. Their silence, presence, and self-respect become the most potent forms of resistance, affirming that real love thrives in freedom, not dominance. By stepping out of the narcissist's shadow, they not only reclaim personal power, but also embody a profound truth. The ego built on manipulation cannot endure in the light of autonomy and authentic love. This final act is both a closure and a declaration. It confirms that the narcissist's world, carefully maintained through charm, control, and deception, is ultimately fragile and finite. Real love, self-respect, and inner freedom stand resilient, impervious to the illusions of those who cannot truly give them. And in that moment, the narcissist's mask finally falls, revealing a shadow that has always been hidden, an empty core confronted with the reality they have long avoided. The ultimate tragedy for the narcissist is not just losing someone. They lose the reflection that sustained their ego, the one connection that might have redeemed them, and the awareness that some losses can never be reclaimed.